quiet suburbs of Maplewood, life had always seemed idyllic for Ryan, a devoted son striving to care for his elderly mother, Margaret. Their home stood as a sanctuary filled with laughter and warmth, echoing the memories of a life well lived. Ryan had always seen himself as her protector, dedicated to ensuring her comfort and happiness after the loss of his father years ago. Their bond was unbreakable, rooted in love and trust, making Margaret's recent decline in health all the more alarming. Margaret had begun to exhibit unusual symptoms: relentless fatigue, persistent nausea, and inexplicable headaches. Doctors were baffled. Their tests yielded inconclusive results that only added to Ryan's frustration and concern. As he watched his mother grow weaker, he felt a swirling tide of fear and determination within him. He knew he had to get to the bottom of her mysterious illness, but where to start? As Ryan delved into researching her symptoms, he began to notice certain patterns. His mother's worsening state coincided suspiciously with issues surrounding their water supply. The small, close-knit neighborhood prided itself on its lush gardens and pristine streets maintained by the local homeowners association, presided over by Karen Thompson. Disturbingly charming with an iron grip on community affairs, Karen's influence masked darker ambitions lurking beneath the surface. Initially skeptical, Ryan soon found himself uncovering unsettling coincidences regarding Clearwater LLC, the failing water company that supplied their neighborhood, and its unexpected connection to Karen's position as HOA president. Instincts urged him to dig deeper. Something felt profoundly off. As Ryan pieced together his findings, fraudulent reports about water quality and strange transactions linking Karen's family to the company, he couldn't shake off a growing sense of dread. Contrary to his instincts suggesting a mere administrative issue, a darker revelation began to crystallize in Ryan's mind. Was it possible that someone could intentionally harm those they swore to protect? The heart-wrenching thought of his mother being victimized sent him spiraling into action. Fueled by a mix of fear for his mother's health and a newfound resolve, he vowed not only to uncover the truth, but also to confront this unseen menace directly. The journey had begun. Ryan transformed from a worried son into an investigator determined to protect his mother at all costs, setting the stage for an escalating battle against betrayal that would ensnare him and alter the course of their lives forever. As Ryan began to fathom the troubling connection between his mother's illness and the neighborhood's water supply, he couldn't ignore the role of the homeowners association. Maplewood had always been seen as a tight-knit community, characterized by neatly manicured lawns and friendly interactions among neighbors. The HOA, led by Karen Thompson, presented itself as a guardian of this idyllic lifestyle, issuing guidelines that kept properties in pristine condition and managing shared amenities to foster a sense of togetherness. However, beneath this surface of charm lay a darker reality. Karen was the darling of Maplewood, her charm disarming and her voice commanding respect. With her perfectly coiffed hair and immaculate wardrobe, she wielded influence over community affairs with alarming ease. Residents often praised her for organizing seasonal events, beautifying parks, and working tirelessly to maintain property values. Yet, those who dared question her authority soon learned that beneath the polished veneer lurked a ruthless enforcer willing to squash dissent. As Ryan immersed himself deeper into unraveling the truth about his mother's condition, he began to notice how Karen used her power for personal gain. Over coffee or during town hall meetings, subtle whispers would emerge about strange financial dealings surrounding Clearwater LLC. Some residents speculated about unexplained fund allocations that redirected money from community projects into Karen's undisclosed ventures. Those who raised concerns found their voices silenced swiftly. Informal conversations morphed into tentative outlines for conflicts that put family unity at risk. Feeling an increasing sense of isolation and urgency, Ryan reached out to fellow neighbors who seemed uneasy with the status quo. They were brave souls who had previously seen glimmers in the shadows cast by Karen's reign, but had remained silenced out of fear. In this gathering of weary hearts yearning for justice and accountability, alliances began forming quietly among those disillusioned by the corrupted system. Conversations shifted away from idle gossip to focused discussions on resistance, how they could confront Karen and expose her manipulations without becoming victims themselves. Ryan realized they were all bound by a common thread: love for their community and its well-being overshadowed by treachery at its highest ranks. As whispers grew louder in living rooms across Maplewood, community resolve began building like an electric current ready to spark, a force potent enough to challenge Karen's iron grip on their beloved upbringing. And while Ryan's primary mission stayed fixed on battling for his mother's health, he knew that confronting Karen would not only protect what was rightfully theirs, but also restore integrity to their neighborhood. The battle lines were drawn. It became increasingly clear. Ryan wasn't just fighting for one life. He was gearing up to fight against an entire system poised against the innocent. With allies beside him, hope found room to breathe amidst looming despair as they collectively strategized against the insidious threat threatening both family and community harmony alike. As Ryan delved deeper into the unsettling connection between his mother's health decline and the water supply, the once familiar surroundings of Maplewood transformed into a maze of uncertainty. His mother, Margaret, had always been vibrant and full of life, but her recent symptoms, fatigue that left her bedridden, nausea that robbed her of appetite, and mysterious headaches, cast a shadow over their home. Each day he watched her demeanor shift further from the joyful woman he had known, replaced by an unsettling pallor and a distant gaze. Determined to uncover the truth behind her deteriorating condition, Ryan began his investigation by scrutinizing every aspect of their daily lives. He started with the water supply, recalling how Margaret had mentioned odd tastes in her drinking water in passing conversations. At first, Ryan dismissed it as mere aging plumbing. However, as he pieced together Margaret's complaints with her worsening symptoms, intuition urged him to dig deeper. Researching potential contaminants in drinking water led him to various online forums where others had reported similar issues in different neighborhoods. His unease grew as he stumbled upon alarming articles about antifreeze poisoning, a substance that could go undetected in small amounts but wreak havoc on health over time. The pieces started to align like a sinister jigsaw puzzle, and the thought of his mother being poisoned fueled his determination. Ryan decided it was time to take action. Armed with a notepad and an insatiable curiosity, he ventured around the neighborhood to gather information discreetly. He knocked on doors and engaged neighbors in casual discussions about their experiences with both the HOA and their water quality. To his dismay, many echoed Margaret's concerns but felt too intimidated by Karen's influence to speak out publicly. Their hesitance only solidified Ryan's resolve. He recognized that he was not alone in this fight. The more he listened, the clearer it became. There was a pattern emerging among residents. Strange occurrences surrounding maintenance practices of Clearwater LLC, such as unannounced shutoffs or inexplicable water quality reports that never seemed accurate. Some neighbors reminisced about how swiftly any dissent against the HOA was suppressed. Questioning Karen could lead to social ostracism or worse. Realizing that his mother's health was intertwined with this community web of deceit left him feeling desperate yet emboldened. If there was indeed foul play involved with their water supply, then exposing it could be pivotal not just for Margaret, but for all who called Maplewood home. Determined more than ever to protect his mother and restore justice, Ryan laid plans for a meticulous examination of Clearwater LLC's records while keeping a close eye on the HOA's activities. With each subtle investigation into the neighborhood's infrastructure and dynamics, Ryan fortified his resolve to confront the looming threat, one that sought to unravel everything he cherished. In this defining moment, he embraced a powerful truth. Knowledge is not just power, it is a weapon against those who dwell in darkness. As Ryan pushed forward with his investigations, a series of clues began to emerge, painting a troubling picture of manipulation and deceit. During one quiet afternoon at the local library, he stumbled upon documents related to Clearwater LLC, the water company servicing Maplewood. The records revealed alarming inconsistencies in water quality tests, with shocking notes indicating that certain samples had been marked as acceptable despite containing hazardous contaminants. His heart raced as he scrutinized this evidence further. Among the various entries was an unsettling mention of traces of ethylene glycol, known to most as antifreeze. With mounting urgency, Ryan realized that these findings could explain the mysterious ailments plaguing his mother and potentially many others in the neighborhood. The thought that someone could deliberately tamper with their water supply ignited a fierce determination within him. He was not only fighting for his mother's health, but also for every unsuspecting neighbor sipping from tainted taps. The more he uncovered, the stronger the connection grew between Karen and Doug's motivations and their attempts to control the community's narrative. In conversations with other residents, it became clear that Karen had routinely dismissed complaints about water quality while positioning herself as a champion of neighborhood safety. Yet behind her composed exterior lay a potential motive. Pushing families out of their homes would allow her to consolidate power over the area, facilitating lucrative real estate deals or development projects that would benefit her financially. Armed with this knowledge, Ryan embarked on a plan to gather irrefutable proof. He installed hidden cameras around his property and positioned them strategically near communal water access points where maintenance workers frequented under the HOA's supervision. It was risky but necessary. He needed tangible evidence linking Karen and Doug directly to any wrongdoing. Days turned into weeks as Ryan anxiously awaited developments. Finally, one fateful morning, his patience paid off when he captured footage of maintenance workers tampering with water supply valves while Karen stood overseeing them. Their hushed conversation hinted at a cover-up regarding complaints and continued violations that had been swept under the rug, a damning piece that might finally expose their machinations. As he reviewed the footage, disgust churned in his stomach. He saw how they laughed off concerns brought by residents who had always trusted their leadership, trust that now seemed misplaced and dangerously naive. The desire for revenge surged through him. It wasn't merely about protecting Margaret anymore. It was about seeking justice for all those whose lives had been upended by fear. With this critical evidence securely in hand, Ryan drew strength from the realization that he did not have to face this battle alone. The connections he had forged with supportive neighbors throughout his investigation rallied behind him as they prepared to confront Karen and Doug, a collective force ready to demand accountability for their actions. Determined more than ever, Ryan understood this was just the beginning. Exposing their fraudulent practices would not only safeguard his mother's health, but ignite a larger movement committed to restoring truth and integrity within Maplewood. They were ready to take back their community from those who sought to corrupt it from within. With the shocking evidence of contamination in hand, Ryan felt a surge of determination flood his veins. The thought of his mother suffering, along with the realization that so many others could be at risk, pushed him to take radical action. He knew that simply exposing Karen and Doug's wrongdoing might not be enough. They had established a stronghold over their neighborhood, and he needed a strategic advantage to protect his family and community. It was time for him to take control of the very source of the corruption. Ryan's mind raced as he considered his options. The more he thought about Clearwater LLC, the water company that supplied Maplewood, the clearer it became that owning it would give him the leverage he needed. If he could gain control over the water supply, he could ensure that Margaret and their neighbors were no longer subjected to tainted water. He began researching the company's financial status and discovered that it was struggling, teetering on the brink of insolvency. This presented a unique opportunity. Drawing upon savings and reaching out to friends and sympathetic neighbors for support, Ryan made a bold decision. He would purchase Clearwater LLC. The idea sent a rush of adrenaline through him. This was an audacious move, but it felt necessary in the face of overwhelming odds. With financial backing from supportive residents who shared his concerns about the water quality and neighborhood safety, Ryan approached the owners of Clearwater LLC with an offer. After intense negotiations filled with tension, he managed to secure ownership. As the ink dried on the contract, Ryan's heart raced with a mix of exhilaration and trepidation. He was now at the helm of Clearwater LLC, responsible for ensuring safe drinking water for himself, his mother, and all those in Maplewood who depended on it. His first order of business was to conduct thorough tests on the entire water supply system to ascertain its quality and eliminate any traces of contamination once and for all. Armed with knowledge and control over the water supply, Ryan felt stronger than ever before. As he implemented changes within Clearwater LLC, reinforcing safety protocols and increasing transparency with residents about water quality reports, he also worked on methods to educate neighbors on how they could keep informed regarding their water use. The once feared presence of Karen began to falter as news spread across Maplewood about Ryan's acquisition. While she had tried to intimidate families into submission through fear tactics, now she faced a formidable opponent who had managed to rally the community together against her practices. With every passing day under new management, confidence surged throughout Maplewood as residents noticed gradual improvements in transparency with their drinking water supply. Conversations shifted from despair to proactive measures. People began engaging in discussions about ensuring accountability within their community governance, inspired by Ryan's bold actions. Through this newfound power over Clearwater LLC, Ryan took an important step not just towards securing his mother's health, but also towards restoring faith in their community. a crucial turning point in their fight against corruption and injustice looming over them all. In doing so, he ignited a spirit of unity among neighbors seeking change where darkness once thrived. Once Ryan became the owner of Clearwater LLC, his mission took on a new dimension. Empowered by his role and emboldened by the growing community support, he realized that he needed more than just motivation and quick fixes. He needed concrete evidence to dismantle the corrupt practices orchestrated by Karen and Doug. Their efforts to manipulate and control the narrative surrounding the neighborhood's water supply had gone unchecked for too long. It was time to expose their deceit in a way that made it undeniable. After careful consideration, Ryan settled on a plan to install hidden surveillance cameras around the neighborhood, especially near strategic locations like the water access points and common areas where HOA-related activities frequently occurred. Understanding the sensitivity of this action and aware of the potential backlash from Karen, he knew it was essential to keep this operation discreet. All of his allies had been alerted, but he insisted that no one else can know about these measures until he had gathered enough evidence. Armed with the latest technology that could provide high-definition footage even in low light, Ryan spent several evenings quietly positioning the cameras while simultaneously keeping an eye out for any HOA meetings taking place nearby. Each camera was cleverly concealed within everyday objects, a garden gnome here, a birdhouse there, ensuring they blended seamlessly into their surroundings. He hoped these measures would catch the conspiratorial actions of Karen and Doug without raising suspicion. After several days of careful monitoring, Ryan received his first breakthrough. Video footage showing maintenance workers tampering with valves and accessing the main water supply system late at night. He watched closely as they appeared to communicate with Karen via text messages, orchestrating an agenda that reeked of cover-up and deceit. The adrenaline surged through him as he contemplated the implications. If what he captured on film could be combined with the evidence of contamination he had previously gathered, it would mount a compelling case against their actions. As the legal channels began forming in his mind, assembling evidence to present not only to other residents but potentially law enforcement, Ryan could feel his focus intensifying. Each interaction between Karen and her accomplices felt like a piece of a puzzle falling into place. He often replayed particularly incriminating segments, ensuring every detail was crystal clear. It became increasingly evident to him that getting others involved, recruiting more neighbors who were fed up with being manipulated, needed to be part of his strategy as well. By sending snippets of this footage accompanied by anonymous tips about Karen's activities through local community forums, Ryan aimed to inform more people about her dubious methods before making a final push for accountability. With this hidden surveillance capturing tangible evidence, Ryan felt a burgeoning hope among residents who once felt powerless against Karen's intimidation tactics. The tide began to shift as whispers transformed into determined conversations about confronting established authority. No longer would they remain silent while their health and safety were jeopardized by those who held positions meant to protect them. As discussions ignited within Maplewood, fueled by impending action against their HOA president, Ryan found himself standing not just for his mother, but alongside an entire community ready to reclaim their safety and dignity, one video clip at a time. With each revelation captured on tape, clarity emerged. Justice couldn't be achieved solely through awareness. It required confrontation, and Ryan was prepared for that fight. As Ryan continued his investigation and the community rallied behind him, the atmosphere in Maplewood shifted dramatically. News of his actions spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of Karen and Doug, who quickly grasped that their hold over the neighborhood was slipping. Feeling cornered, they escalated their intimidation tactics, utilizing their influence within the HOA to maintain control through fear. One evening, as Ryan reviewed footage from his hidden cameras, he heard a commotion outside. Peering through his window, he spotted Doug standing defiantly on the front lawn, flanked by a few other HOA supporters. Their expressions were menacing, and their body language radiated aggression. Karen's voice cut through the air as she shouted accusations about Ryan's supposed paranoia and baseless claims. She insisted that his actions were detrimental to community harmony, framing his fight for justice as an act of rebellion against their neighborhood values. The tension escalated when Ryan confronted them outside. Responding to their taunts with calm resolve, he insisted that he was merely looking out for the safety of his mother and others in Maplewood. But instead of retreating under pressure, Karen and Doug doubled down. They threatened to encourage other homeowners to distance themselves from Ryan, suggesting that supporting him would lead to a loss of trust within the community, an implied warning that made many residents uneasy. Feeling emboldened by their threats but also frightened for his safety and that of his mother, Ryan decided it was time to take a stand. He initiated discussions with supportive neighbors about forming a collective front against Karen's intimidation tactics. They planned a meeting where they could confront both Karen and Doug publicly, hoping transparency would help dispel fear among those still loyal to the HOA leadership. However, as they prepared for this confrontation, Karen and Doug ramped up their aggressive maneuvers with more sinister undertones. Late-night vandalism began to occur. Flower pots were overturned, fences were damaged, and some residents received anonymous notes threatening repercussions for speaking out against the HOA. The sense of safety that once enveloped Maplewood had begun to unravel as whispers of chaos took root. Ryan knew they needed to address these threats head-on without letting fear scatter their resolve. He called upon his allies to document every incident meticulously. Photos, notes from conversations, and reports from neighbors affected by these behaviors, all aimed at constructing a narrative of intimidation that could no longer be dismissed as mere coincidence. The community meeting approached quickly, and as emotions ran high leading up to it, Ryan felt an urgency grow within him. A deep-rooted need not just to protect his mother, but also to safeguard the values of honesty and accountability within Maplewood. If they could present evidence not only of water contamination, but also of the HOA's oppressive practices during the meeting, it might be enough to turn public opinion against Karen and Doug decisively. With each passing day filled with uncertainty and rising tensions, Ryan remained steadfast in his commitment to confront injustice, determined that no amount of intimidation could extinguish the flame of truth burning brightly among those who sought change in their community. The stakes had never been higher. It was time for them all to unite against corruption before it drove them apart completely. As tensions in Maplewood reached a boiling point, Ryan understood that confronting Karen and Doug would require more than just his determination. It needed the collective strength of the community behind him. The threats and intimidation tactics employed by the HOA leadership had instilled fear among many residents, making them hesitant to openly support Ryan's cause. However, he sensed that beneath the surface, there was a growing desire for change and justice among his neighbors. Ryan began organizing informal gatherings at local parks and community centers, inviting those who had expressed concerns about the HOA's practices. He spoke not only about his mother's health, but also about the safety of their shared environment, emphasizing the importance of coming together to reclaim their neighborhood from corruption. During these meetings, residents shared their own experiences, some relaying instances of oppression they faced, while others voiced concerns over property value declines linked to the HOA's poor management. Slowly but surely, the atmosphere shifted from one of fear to courage. Neighbors once hesitant to speak up found themselves galvanized by Ryan's commitment. They were ready to protect their homes, families, and neighbors. They yearned for an opportunity to stand against what had become an unjust system. It became increasingly clear that they were not just fighting for one person's health. They were banding together for a cause that encompassed all of Maplewood. A core group emerged as Ryan's allies, individuals who had suffered under Karen's heavy-handed approach. This collective journey fostered friendships built on shared resolve and purpose. They systematically documented every incident of intimidation and vandalism targeting Ryan and others who dared question the HOA leadership. With every account gathered, their case against Karen and Doug grew stronger. Word soon spread through Maplewood about their resistance. Support poured in from corners of the neighborhood previously thought silent. Residents began wearing Justice for Maplewood buttons during local events, signifying their allegiance to Ryan's mission. It wasn't long before a sense of collective identity formed, uniting their voices under a common banner, a powerful symbol of resilience against adversity. Before long, they solidified plans for a larger meeting aimed directly at addressing Karen and Doug's actions head-on. The group crafted a presentation encompassing not only evidence gathered from Ryan's surveillance footage, but also testimonies from several residents detailing their injustices at the hands of leadership. Each voice was poised to echo the same sentiment: enough was enough. The stakes had never been higher. This was their moment to reclaim control over Maplewood. As they prepared their presentation for the upcoming HOA meeting, energy rippled throughout the group, an electric charge fueled by solidarity and hope for change. They no longer felt like isolated voices. Instead, they represented a chorus ready to demand accountability from those who had long held power over them. In an environment once dominated by fear, confidence surged anew among them, a demonstration that unity could indeed overcome oppression. As Ryan stood beside his neighbors preparing for what was sure to be a pivotal confrontation with Karen and Doug, he felt empowered knowing that together they were stronger than any shadow of intimidation lurking within their community. Justice was on the horizon, and they were ready to seize it collectively. The day of the community meeting arrived, charged with anticipation and a hint of anxiety. Ryan stood at the forefront, flanked by his neighbors who had banded together in a collective stand against the oppressive rule of Karen and Doug. The atmosphere in the packed community center was electric, filled with murmurs and whispers as residents took their seats, eager to finally confront the leadership that had terrorized them for too long. As the meeting commenced, Ryan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness bubble within him. He had spent countless hours preparing, ensuring that their message would resonate clearly with everyone present. Karen and Doug sat at the head of the table, their expressions exhibiting a confident facade, but Ryan noted the flicker of unease hidden in their eyes as they faced a room filled with skeptical neighbors no longer willing to stay silent. One by one, residents stepped forward to share their stories. They recounted experiences of intimidation and retaliation, detailing how Karen had wielded her power like a weapon against anyone who dared question her authority. As they shared their testimonies, Ryan watched disbelief wash over some faces in the audience. People who had previously sided with Karen now appeared shaken by what they were hearing. Then came Ryan's moment to speak. Standing at the front, he cleared his throat and addressed the crowd with a steady voice that resonated with conviction. "We are here today not just for ourselves, but for our families and friends, our community as a whole." He revealed the evidence they had collected, video footage showcasing instances of Karen's deceitful actions and intimidation tactics against those who spoke out. As images flashed across a screen behind him, gasps filled the room, morphing into murmurs of shock as people absorbed the undeniable reality before them. With each clip played, more hearts swayed from apathy to outrage. The footage showed Doug lurking in shadows while maintenance workers tampered with water supply valves and Karen's dismissive demeanor when confronted about complaints from residents. The truth was laid bare before them. It was impossible to deny. Ryan didn't stop there. He introduced his plans for Clearwater LLC's transformation under new management, a commitment to transparency that would ensure accountability moving forward. "We deserve a voice in our own neighborhood," he declared passionately, eliciting cheers and applause from an invigorated crowd. "Today marks a turning point." The tide of public opinion shifted dramatically in that moment, leaving Karen visibly rattled at the opposite end of the room. As residents began chanting phrases of support for Ryan and his movement, it became clear that the tide had turned against her. They were no longer fearing reprisal, but rather embracing empowerment, a unity forged in shared suffering that was now ready to confront injustice head-on. In those final moments of the meeting, Ryan witnessed something extraordinary unfold. Neighbors once divided by fear now stood united as defenders of their community's future. No longer just recipients of fear, but advocates for change who were reclaiming their dignity against corruption. As Ryan stepped down from his improvised podium, he felt elation surge within him. Justice was no longer an abstract possibility, but something rapidly becoming tangible with every person who stood alongside him that day. The battle against Karen and Doug was far from over, but this decisive confrontation marked an undeniable crescendo in their fight, a once fractured community now standing resolutely together against oppression. The aftermath of the community meeting was charged with an exhilarating sense of possibility, but Ryan knew their fight was not yet over. The tide of public opinion had shifted in favor of transparency and justice, but the real challenge lay ahead, holding Karen and Doug accountable for their actions. With the collected evidence in hand, Ryan and his allies understood that it was crucial to take the next steps toward legal intervention. Determined to ensure that Karen and Doug faced consequences for their criminal activities, Ryan spearheaded a plan to present their findings to law enforcement. He coordinated with some residents who had previously experienced intimidation or threats, urging them to come forward with their testimonies. Each story added weight to their case, painting a comprehensive picture of corruption that could no longer be ignored. On a bright morning, Ryan stood outside the local police station alongside a group of concerned neighbors. The atmosphere felt charged with urgency as they prepared to enter with files containing video footage documents outlining Karen and Doug's various transgressions, and sworn statements from residents detailing their experiences. The determination in the air was palpable. They were ready to take back their neighborhood from tyranny. Inside the station, as they presented their evidence, officers listened intently, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. It was evident that they were taken aback by the volume of testimonies and the detailed accounts shared by residents weary from years of oppression. As detective after detective reviewed the materials laid out before them, it became clear that this was not just a series of isolated incidents, but rather a systemic pattern of abuse warranting serious investigation. Within days, law enforcement moved swiftly on the information provided by Ryan's coalition. They conducted interviews with witnesses across Maplewood and secured warrants for further investigation into Clearwater LLC's business operations, as well as Karen and Doug's financial dealings. As news spread about ongoing police action against the HOA leaders, fear shifted into anticipation throughout the neighborhood. An overwhelming sense of righteousness surged among residents eager for change. Ryan watched as Karen's once unshakable confidence began to crack under pressure. The same leader who had instilled fear in families stood before authorities now exposed for her deceitful actions. Late-night clandestine meetings turned into public scrutiny. Whispers amongst residents transformed into determined conversations about accountability. Finally came the day when law enforcement publicly announced charges against Karen and Doug for their involvement in corrupt practices related to water contamination and intimidation tactics used against residents. As the news broke across local media outlets, cheers erupted from within Maplewood. People celebrated not only Nathan's fight for justice, but also their newfound strength as a cohesive community standing against wrongdoing. In those moments, hope burst forth like sunlight breaking through dark clouds, a transformative realization that united parents, grandparents, friends, and neighbors had prevailed over oppression together. The finality of this resolution marked a new chapter for Maplewood, a chance for healing to begin within a once fractured community that would forever hold onto its hard-fought lessons. With increased optimism as they looked ahead toward restoring trust within their neighborhood, Ryan couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed since he first embarked on this journey. What began as a mission solely focused on protecting his mother had blossomed into something far greater, a community awakened to its power against corruption, one that would continue working together to ensure such injustices would never occur again. In the weeks following the charges against Karen and Doug, a palpable sense of relief and hope began to settle over Maplewood. For Ryan, however, the first priority remained his mother, Margaret. The battle against the HOA's corruption had taken a toll on her health, and now that they were reclaiming their community, he turned his focus toward ensuring she received the proper medical care she so desperately needed. With newfound energy and resources available through community support, Ryan arranged for Margaret to see specialists who could address the long-term effects of her exposure to contaminated water. The sense of urgency propelled him into action. He was determined to restore not only her health but also her spirit. After years of watching her suffer in silence, he felt an overwhelming responsibility to ensure she was cared for. During her initial appointments, doctors conducted comprehensive tests and assessments. As the results came back, it became evident that while the contamination had indeed affected her health, there was hope for recovery. The revelations brought a wave of emotions. Relief flooded through Ryan, tempered with a lingering sadness over what his mother had endured. He realized that their journey had not just been about unmasking corruption, but also about healing the wounds inflicted by that corruption. As treatment began, Ryan witnessed Margaret's gradual transformation. The vibrant spark that had dimmed during her illness began to flicker back to life. With each passing day, as she regained strength and vitality from proper medication and care, their bond deepened. They shared heartfelt conversations about their experiences, fears, and dreams for the future. The emotional connection they built during this time became a source of solace for both. Margaret's resilience inspired Ryan as well. She began attending community gatherings where neighbors celebrated their collective victory over injustice. The very same people who had rallied against Karen and Doug now embraced Margaret with open arms, recognizing her struggles and offering support. This sense of community bolstered her spirits significantly. It was a reminder that they were not alone in their fight or in their healing. One evening, as they sat together on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink, Margaret turned to Ryan with tears in her eyes. "I'm so proud of you," she said softly. Not just for fighting for me, but for fighting for all of us. Her words struck a chord deep within him. It was a testament to how far they had come, not just in battling corruption, but in healing familial bonds strengthened through adversity. As days turned into weeks, Margaret continued to thrive under proper medical care, gradually emerging from the shadows cast by her illness. Each small milestone became a celebration, a walk around the block without fatigue, cooking dinner together again, or simply sharing laughter over memories they cherished. Ryan recognized that their journey toward recovery would be ongoing. They would continue facing challenges together. Yet with every step forward they took as a family, and as part of a united community, their resilience blossomed like flowers breaking through winter's frost. The emotional recovery marked an important turning point not just for Margaret, but also for Ryan, signifying that amidst turmoil could emerge strength and unity. Their bond solidified further as they navigated this new chapter together, one rooted in love, healing, and an unwavering commitment to ensure that such injustices would never be faced alone again. As the dust began to settle in Maplewood, the community breathed a collective sigh of relief, united by their recent victories against injustice. The culmination of Ryan's relentless fight for his mother and his neighbors solidified the essential themes of unity, resilience, and the triumph of good over evil. The once fractured community had come together in an extraordinary way, demonstrating how ordinary individuals could overcome fear and oppression when motivated by a common purpose. With Karen and Doug held accountable for their actions, the residents felt a renewed sense of hope that resonated through the neighborhood like a warm embrace. People began to engage more actively in local governance. They attended meetings not just to discuss complaints, but to participate in shaping a brighter future for Maplewood. Residents formed committees focused on transparency and accountability, ensuring that no one would have to endure what they had experienced under Karen's reign again. Ryan watched with pride as neighbors transformed into advocates for justice, attending workshops on community engagement and rights. Margaret, freshly invigorated by proper medical care, joined her son at these gatherings. She shared her story with others, her resilience inspiring those around her. Each shared experience became a testament to the power of coming together to confront adversity. One sunny afternoon, Ryan organized a neighborhood block party to celebrate their hard-won freedom from tyranny. It was a day overflowing with laughter, music, and camaraderie as families brought food and games while children played freely without fear. As Ryan looked around, the vibrant colors of decorations paired with smiling faces, he felt an overwhelming sense of joy wash over him. This was what community meant: support amidst challenges and solidarity when it mattered most. At one point during the festivities, Ryan gathered everyone around for a toast. "To our incredible community," he began, raising his glass high. "Together we have faced darkness and emerged into light. We fought not just for ourselves, but for our friends and family. Let us continue this journey united." Cheers erupted among the crowd, echoing across the street as neighbors lifted their glasses in celebration. That evening, as twilight descended upon Maplewood, Ryan returned home with Margaret after an exhilarating day filled with positive energy. Together on the porch, they reflected on how far they had come, not only in combating corruption, but also in healing their family bond and strengthening their relationships with those around them. Margaret smiled as she looked at Ryan's determined expression. She felt gratefulness bloom within her heart. "You showed me what courage looks like," she said softly, "not just by fighting for me, but for every single person affected by Karen's actions." In that moment, Ryan understood that their journey was about more than just victory against a corrupt HOA leader. It was about fostering a culture of empowerment where every voice mattered. The scars from their struggles would remain as reminders of resilience. However, they emerged stronger than ever before, a community revitalized by trust, accountability, and unwavering unity. As stars twinkled overhead amidst the calm night air, Ryan felt hopeful about what lay ahead for Maplewood, a future illuminated by justice where each person stood guard against any threats to their newfound freedom. They had learned valuable lessons that would carry them through challenges yet to come. Together they were invincible. Together they could build a brighter tomorrow.